I think when a lot of new podcasters first get started, they're under the impression that they have to have interviews for every single episode. I know that's how I started. I was like, I gotta have interviews. I have to have someone to talk to because God forbid I'm in a room by myself talking to myself. But today I want to share with you 3 reasons why I think it's very important that you also have solo episodes for your podcast. So let's get right to it. Hey y'all, Krystal here today, and I'm going to share with you 3 reasons why I think it's super smart and very important to include solo podcast episodes within your podcast content schedule. Now, if you're just getting started and you're thinking, I really want to go the route of doing interviews and maybe solo podcast, that's okay. Like, we can figure this out together because there is no right or wrong whenever it comes to a podcast content strategy. But there are 3 really important reasons why I think you should infuse some of these solo podcast episodes for your podcast. So let's dive right in. The first reason why I want you to have solo podcast episodes within your podcast is it gives you the ability to control your schedule. What does that mean, right? You're like, I'm doing my podcast. I can do whatever I want. Well, whenever you're working with other people, you kind of give over your schedule to the mercy of what someone else can do. An example is if I wanted to schedule an interview with you, but then all of a sudden one of my kids gets sick, or I have to go out of town suddenly, or I have to reschedule, and then something else comes up and I have to cancel and I have to do this over and over and over again, then I'm at the mercy, or you're at the mercy of my schedule actually in this scenario, right? Like, I'm trying to be on your show kind of thing, right? That makes sense. But I have seen this play out in my own podcast multiple times where I've had to reschedule and then my guest has had to reschedule, or something else came up with another guest. So I don't want you to be at the full mercy of someone else's agenda or what they're trying to accomplish. I want you to have the ability to control your own schedule. And you can do that if you have more solo podcasts, because what if somebody all of a sudden comes up, they have to reschedule, they have to cancel, you have to make up this interview, all of a sudden you're in a bind and you're like, what am I supposed to do? Insert or incomes to save the day, solo podcast episodes. So that is my reason number 1, is you can control your own schedule a lot easier if you have the ability to put in solo podcasts. The second reason why I think it's important to have solo podcast episodes is it gives you the ability to control the content. Now, if you're using your podcast like as a strategy within your business, then you are probably strategically doing certain episodes around certain times. Maybe you have a book launch or a product launch or a live event or something else going on, and you're thinking, okay, this is the pathway that I want to lead listeners, or this is the customer journey. Here's where I want them to end up by the time I'm going into this promotional period within my podcast. You can do that a lot easier if you have solo episodes. Does that make sense? I want you to check out this video right here that's all about self-sponsored ads and how you can actually use your podcast as a promotional way to promote your own products and services and the things that your business offers. But I think whenever you have your own solo episodes, you're able to do this a lot easier and more naturally than if you're interviewing someone and then all of a sudden you start talking about what you're doing. Right? That gets a little awkward. Even if you put it in like its own segment within the show, that can still be a little like misconstrued as you're trying to take away from your guest and make it more about you and your business instead of what they have to offer. So I think that if you stick with solo episodes whenever you're doing promotional things, it can be a lot easier. It's not as complicated and it just feels more natural to talk about your own products and services whenever you're doing your own solo episodes. So controlling your content is reason number 2. I think it's important for you to have solo podcast within your podcast show. So tell me in the comments below, do you currently have a podcast that has solo and interview episodes? Are you just doing one and not the other? Have you just thought, I'm just going to go this route? Tell me in the comments because I'm curious. I have a show that has both solo and interview episodes, and people often ask me, well, do you space them out where you have one on a Tuesday, one on a Thursday, one on a Tuesday, one and so on and so forth? And I tell people it's my show and I kind of do whatever I want. Like, I feel like I'm a little rogue in that sense that I have a few guidelines and a few things that I like to stick to whenever it comes to how I format my podcast, but I can change up and throw in an interview or a solo episode whenever I want, and that is the beauty of doing both. You can mix it up from time to time and change things up if you start to feel like your content has gone a little bit stale. But comment below and let me know what you're doing with your podcast. Okay, let's get back to the video. And reason number 3 why I want you to have solo episodes within your podcast is flexibility. Right? I had to throw in something because I felt like, ooh, we're being a little too controlling here. Like, oh, it's control the schedule, control the content. But whenever you have solo episodes, you're actually able to be way more flexible with your content. So what do I mean by that? I mean, whenever I sit down to plan my podcast content, you can actually check out this video right here, all about planning, like how I set up a podcast content calendar, and that can help you understand more about what I'm talking about when it comes to scheduling and coming up with content. But I really want you to be able to do it on your own time. Again, going back to having control over your schedule and being able to move things around. Whenever I add in solo episodes that I know my audience is asking about, or something that's trending right now, and I know I need to talk about this because it's hot. This is a hot topic and we need to address this right now, not wait 2 more months or in 8 more episodes whenever it was originally on the calendar. I like to be able to move things around, and I can do that whenever I have my own schedule. I have my own solo podcast, because if I had an episode here and I wanted to move it down here and then talk about this other one here, I can do that. But if you just have interviews only and you promise someone your episode is going to air on this date, I want you to stick to that. And you can't really be super flexible if you're promising other people this is when your episode is going to air and then not stick to that. Does that make sense? It's really more of an integrity move to make sure that you're honoring what you're telling your guests when their episodes are going to air, and having the flexibility to move around your own content to wherever you want it to be. So that is reason number 3 why I think you should have solo podcast episodes, is to have the flexibility to do whatever you want to do with your schedule, with your content, and with your podcast, because being able to be flexible with your podcast helps it be so much more fun. And that's what we are going for. I want you to create a sustainable podcast that continues to be fun, not just now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You are still excited about your podcast because you've kept it fun and you've kept the energy alive. But that does it for today. So make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe below if you haven't already. Make sure you check out these other awesome podcasting videos that we put out every single week. Make sure you check out the free 5-day Create Your Podcast Bootcamp in the video description below. Again, subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere.